Welcome to the Sharpway Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, a little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And tonight I am talking about something that a lot of people either don't know or do know and are really passionate about, pro or against. It's a big deal that people are talking about, but I think recent years, particularly in the last 2 or 3, has come to the forefront more than anything else, which is the idea of qualified immunity, the idea of ending qualified immunity, which people have been talking about for a long time, but I think it's really been popping up to the surface recently. And a second piece that's interesting here, the tactic in tackling it is now the idea of a ballot initiative, which in many states can't even be done, or if it can be done, it's done in a very kind of backward way. But I have someone with me who is dealing with that issue that we talked about, trying to end qualified immunity and doing it via ballot access in Ohio. I have with me the chair of, see if I get it right, the Ohio Coalition to End Qualified Immunity, the woman herself, Cynthia Brown. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Larry?
I'm doing great. It looks like you have someone with you, a special guest. Who would that person be?
Yes, my special guest is our executive director, as well as our campaign manager for protecting Ohioans' constitutional rights, Mr. Kyle Pierce, right here.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm happy. I get 2 for 1 tonight. Benefit for me.
I
love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess one of the bigger questions that a lot of people who are watching now, they kind of get what qualified immunity is. That's why they tuned in, right? But there are also a lot of people who are going to watch this later and who are tuning in now who aren't sure what this means. And so can you help me out by kind of give me a thumbnail? What is this qualified immunity thing?
Go ahead, explain, Kyle.
So qualified immunity is basically a legal doctrine created by the Supreme Court. It makes it so that in civil cases, when someone tries to sue an individual government employee when they violate someone's constitutional rights, that they automatically get this qualified immunity. And you have to prove that there is a prior case in which the facts are almost exactly the same as the case you're trying to bring, in which someone has won that case against the government for you to even be able to proceed with a case.
This is only for civil?
Yes, only civil cases. Does not apply to criminal cases.
But does this affect criminal? In other words, and what I mean by that is there is still, even though there may not be a specific law, there still is kind of a world, that an environment that people think of, right? And they think, well, qualified immunity, it means I probably don't want to bring a criminal case either. Does that happen, or is that just my mind?
So qualified immunity itself does not apply to any criminal proceeding. However, things brought out in discovery during these civil cases can lead to probable cause for opening a criminal case against the government.
Oh, I got it. So somebody might want to bring a civil case, even if they can't win it, in an attempt to make a criminal case.
That could be one way.
Oh, look at that. Okay, I learned something new today. Thank you. You guys are great. I love that. All right. But now the qualified immunity piece, I think a lot of people think that it's only about cops, and that qualified immunity is, let's get the cops, let's punish the cops, is what I think most people who are against it think of that. But it's not just cops. It's all government employees, isn't it?
Government, yes, and public servants, including law enforcement. Our ballot initiative addresses all government officials. We use the language from New Mexico and Nevada because they are states that have ended qualified immunity for all government officials, including law enforcement and correctional officers.
When did they do that?
New Mexico did it in their General Assembly in 2021. And Nevada just did theirs December through their Supreme.
New Mexico did it in 2021. I'm assuming New Mexico has exploded into violence and death and destruction.
No, they have not.
No, wait a minute. That's impossible.
No, I mean, cops are actually de-escalating the situation by not using lethal force as the first option when they encounter, people in the communities. They're not guns out and,
I would have thought that now all of a sudden it's mayhem and chaos. I can't believe it. Wait a minute. That's crazy. Okay,
it's like
well,
they have
that's something.
rebuilt the
Okay.
communities between, law enforcement. There's trust there. Because before, people were afraid of the cops if they come into, certain communities of color. They know the outcome. But we have to think, the cops are not the bad guys. I lost a nephew, with police violence, and my other nephew is in law enforcement. So we know what it's like on both sides. This is why
I know the feeling. My mother was a felon, and she was an addict, and she actually went to prison. And my father was a corrections officer, so I've been on both sides of that too.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry for your loss, by the way.
Also, Colorado was the first state to end it in 2020, and in New York City, where you're from, the city council did it in 2021, where they're going to hold, law enforcement accountable, and they violate our civil liberties, individual rights. So.
Yeah, but New York City is a disaster, so we don't want to talk about that.
But still, the city council did.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but I want to go one step further, though. I want to stay on this for a couple seconds, if I could. We're even talking about prosecutors. We're talking about administrators in universities, public universities. We're talking about judges. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people. It makes me feel like the establishment not going to be happy with you if you do this. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. We've already experienced attacks from the establishment. Frank LaRose, who is the current Ohio Secretary of State, has come out and directly attacked us as being against police officers, as being a progressive, far left organization.
Dare you be progressive? Oh my God!
Far from the truth, or if anything, we'd be considered conservative, trying to get back to the roots of actually being able to hold government accountable through the civil courts when they violate our constitutional rights before these Supreme Court rulings in 1967 and 1982.
But now, if we do that with prosecutors, right? And the part that I love is I feel that most people don't realize that while a police force may make errors or do things poorly, they are very much affected by their DA and their prosecutors, right? The more the DAs prosecute, the more the DAs charge, and what they charge for and what they actually prosecute affects, who the cops arrest and who they go punish, right? So they are affected by the prosecutors. They're affected by the DA because that kind of gives them the marching orders on what's expected, right? What are they going to let go? What are they going to prosecute? It kind of tells the cops where to go in that regard. So affecting the prosecutors, I got to tell you, I love it. I am not a big fan of over-powerful prosecutors because I remember, for those of you who are watching who don't know this, and you may have been at this, I consult with criminal defense attorneys. And I actually heard a prosecutor say, literally, his words in a courtroom were, he's innocent until proven broke. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget that. And I had another prosecutor say, it doesn't matter if we get it wrong, they'll fix it in appeal. Knowing that appeal is almost never fixable. I mean, once in a while you win an appeal, it does happen, but it is not the norm in any way, shape, or form that you win an appeal. But I just saw the total disregard for prosecutors, and I've seen it more than once. Total disregard that prosecutors have for people they're prosecuting. Just total disregard, not caring. Holding them accountable to me sounds delicious.
Mm-hmm. It is a delicious prospect, and that's something that hits close to home here in Ohio. We had one of the longest running people on death row here in Ohio. Derek Jamison was on death row for over 20 years. He had multiple stays of execution during that 20-year period, and he was later exonerated and released because the prosecutor withheld over 30 pieces of exculpatory evidence that would have proven him to be not guilty. And prosecutors, now qualified immunity has a way to get around it. Prosecutorial immunity has absolute blanket immunity. You could never sue a prosecutor for anything they do in their prosecutorial duties.
That's so getting rid of qualified immunity doesn't affect prosecutorial immunity?
The amendment we're proposing gets rid of qualified immunity, prosecutorial immunity, sovereign immunity, and all statutory immunities that the government enjoys at the expense of the people and our rights.
I am going to so make sure everyone copies that. Thank you so much. That is amazing. I love the idea, but let me go to a fear I think people are going to have, right? And that is, if we do this, it's going to open up a floodgate and everybody's going to sue everybody, and the lawyers are going to have a field day, and the trial lawyers are going to, New York State's got a lot of trial lawyers, and I mean a lot of trial lawyers, and they're going to be going through and they're going to be suing everybody, and the city and the state is going to have to pay billions of dollars. And when the city and state pays all these billions of dollars, all that money is going to come from the least powerful people's budgets, right? So whoever is the weakest in our society, they are going to lose the money from their budgets. You must hear that fear, I assume, correct?
Yeah, we do. But in our research, we found that 5 states alone in the last 5 years have paid out $3.2 billion. Let me say that again, $3.2 billion for police misconduct. That money already comes from taxpayers. Why should we, taxpayer, pay all those multi-million-dollar lawsuits? Now, as you were saying, we know about the myths that Cal will explain that are all myths about qualified immunity. Want to explain real quick?
Sure. And just as an addendum to that, $3.2 billion being paid out, it's because nothing ever changes. Under this amendment, there is a clause that states that if someone wins their case against the government or the government employee in these civil court proceedings, then the judge would have to order that government employer to take, quote, reasonable measures to prevent a similar rights violation from reoccurring, end quote. So over time, this will address the root causes that enable these rights violations to occur over and over again. And it'll be a long-term investment in securing our constitutional rights and liberties, and also protecting our governments from having to pay out so many settlements, because the systemic issues will be addressed over time.
But I guess the worry is, right, look, as a libertarian, I don't trust government in general, right? So the judge is going to say, okay, you need to fix this. And they go, yeah, whatever. It's not my money. It's taxpayer money. I'm not going to fix it. I don't care. And the person doesn't fix it, or they get removed, or their crony comes in, or they get they lose their election, whatever. Someone else comes in, they don't care. How do we know this will actually make change? How do we know this? And then just ignore it and say, we don't care.
The judge would give a specific order of a specific thing to change. It wouldn't be left up to the employer to decide what those reasonable measures are. And if they decline to comply with those judge orders, they're now in contempt of court.
Got it. Okay. Now I'm clear now. Thank you. That cleared that up. So there actually is a punishment. The person can't just really blow it off unless they want to be back in front of that judge facing contempt charges.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's clear. I feel better already. Great. Okay, good. I like that. So with that in mind, have we seen then in New Mexico or Colorado a rash of billions of dollars in lawsuits? Did that happen? Was there an initial push with a bunch of lawsuits?
We haven't seen that happen. It doesn't, from what limited data that's available, this has only been going on for a year and a half, 2 years, when it comes to Colorado, to where that data is available. We haven't seen any rash of lawsuits against the government, any higher than normal payouts from these governments. You'd have to find a lawyer who thinks a case is worthy of being taken to court. And then you have to, in most cases, because a lot of people who are victims of police misconduct and rights violations from the government, they're typically regular people who don't have the money to pay for a lawyer up front. So that lawyer would be working on a if we win kind of basis.
Right.
A percentage
Got it.
So we haven't seen that happening in New Mexico or Colorado.
Or Connecticut either, because they passed it too in Connecticut.
Right. We haven't seen it out of Connecticut.
Wow.
But we are waiting for more time to see how that kind of develops in Connecticut.
So I feel like these fears aren't coming to fruition at all. I think it's you're telling me that it actually, you were seeing we're seeing not a short-term, all of a sudden, rush into lawsuits. And in fact, what we're seeing is better outcomes between police and their communities. Is that true? That's what I heard.
Yes.
That's amazing. Okay. So let me go to another piece I would assume people will be upset about is the idea that, wait a minute, now that you're doing this, you're fighting the police unions, right? Because the unions want to create a Bill of Rights for their officers, right? As any union would want to do. A union want to support the workers. So aren't you kind of fighting the unions in this case? Aren't you in a way being anti-union in a way, not allowing the workers to get their Bill of Rights?
Not necessarily, no. And we have experienced pushback from the Fraternal Order of Police here in Ohio.
Sure.
And just yesterday, the National Fraternal Order of Police uploaded to their YouTube channel a video where they get a lawyer who just so happens to be from Columbus, Ohio, to talk about how qualified immunity is good, how it only applies to good officers doing following their duty and not to those rogue officers who are doing who are committing constitutional violations outside of the rules and regulations of their duty, which is patently false. These qualified immunity has applied to cases where someone in Ohio has been arrested for creating a parody Facebook page of their local police department, put all the way through a felony jury trial, found not guilty on First Amendment grounds, went to sue the government and those involved. They were granted qualified immunity and by the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court declined to hear that case. So that ruling will always stand, and they'll never get restitution for the day of work they missed while in jail and
sure
the time they spent in that full felony jury trial. So to circle back to that original point of, are we anti-union, even anti-police union? Absolutely not. The police union members are not the ones liable here. They are not the ones who will have to be liable for any damages that come out of these civil suits. What they will get is better training to be more in line with how to best respect our constitutional rights while fulfilling their duties as law enforcement officers. And it will allow them to be better equipped if there is an equipment issue that leads to these rights violations. It will allow for proper staffing if there's staffing issues that lead to these rights violations.
Let me do a little bit of admin for my audience, if I could, for a second. Audience, if you are listening right now and you like what you're hearing, do me a favor, click that like button. You know I need the likes. I'm fighting Al Gore, algorithm. I'm fighting the algorithm every day of the week. So please do me a favor. Let me get past the algorithms and please click the like button. It does matter tremendously. If you're watching on Twitter, I saw my chat say that the Twitter feed into Larry Sharp Twitter is not working well. So if you're watching on Sharpway Twitter, this goes on 2 Twitter accounts. Please retweet this. It matter tremendously. If you're on Twitter and someone's trying to watch it, let them know. Come to YouTube. Come to Facebook. It's here. We're sitting here. It's right here waiting for you. It's on Twitch, too. You can go to Twitch if you want to. It's everywhere. No worries. You can do it. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, please super chat me if you want your chat to go to the front. It's a great way of supporting the show. But more important, I have 2-for-1 people here helping us out. So please follow them back on Twitter, if you would, at the OCEQI. Please follow them. When you check out Cynthia specifically, all her details are in the show notes for YouTube and Facebook. Sorry, Cal, I didn't have you on, so your details aren't there. Apologize.
That is A-okay.
But he's on the website.
There we go. Yes, but he's on the website, so you can head to the Twitter account, and you can go to the link for the website there too. Check out what they're doing. All good. No worries. I do want to grab a couple of comments if I could. Some people are commenting. Some people just love you in general. Liberty Shamrocker says, cannot wait. Cynthia is doing so many great things. Thank you, Larry and staff. So you have some fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we
Thank
go.
You, Liberty Shamrocker.
Yes. Josh says, we in Ohio appreciate all that Cynthia and OCTEQI have been doing. So they're watching you. You got fans.
All right.
There's libertarians.
So
it's Josh.
Nate says that prosecutor needs to go to prison for that. I agree. The prosecutor who kept that person away. Do you know what happened to that prosecutor, by the way?
Nothing.
They are retired and living their best life now.
Oh, you just made Nate mad. Nate is even madder now.
Right.
Nate's even madder now. Yes.
With these criminal charges, you have to get a prosecutor that's willing to prosecute their predecessor, which is not always an easy task to get them to do.
There we
It
go.
sets the precedent for if they participate in misconduct, then they might be prosecuted by the person who follows them.
Legacy Zach has a very important opinion. His opinion is all prosecutors are criminals. Well, there we go. That's an opinion. There's one. Okay. I kind of lean his way sometimes, to be very full with you. I do lean towards that, but that's too far for me to go personally, but I do lean that way sometimes. Just saying. I get what he's talking about. I definitely do. So yes. But are you worried? Speaking of that, are you worried that they will try to trump up some charges on you and try to stop you that way? Is that a concern?
No.
No.
Good. That's what I want to hear. I love that. Absolutely. So yes. Let's see here. Dave says, I sometimes wonder whether or not we should actually give the absolute immunity that the Republican Party was to give to police. Then when it blows up in their face, we'll say we warned you. I get the sentiment of that. However, the amount of people who would be punished and damaged by that to get to the point you're talking about, Dave, I'm not okay with that. Because you imagine if you gave anybody absolute immunity, anybody, imagine the damage that they would do. Even if there was a I told you so moment at the end of that damage, I think that could happen. But oh my God, the amount of damage that we would do. Mm-hmm. But I get his point. I mean, you can see how people are frustrated, can't you? Obviously, right? You can see they're frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Paula says, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and there's a lot of support for law enforcement down here. Even with a police captain under investigation for alleged threats towards another officer, we still support our police. The burbs down here are very conservative. Are you? That brings me to an important point. Who is against this besides obviously police unions who are giving you some pressure? But who else is against this? Is there a group of people who are against it? A certain demographic that are against it? Are there certain? Is there an industrial complex that makes money off of something that's against it? Are there other forces or groups that are against this?
Well, the only person that has spoken out against us, like Kyle said, was Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Mm-hmm. The Republican chairperson, who's also from Cincinnati, and just the Republican Party.
Okay.
There's no other group, because in Ohio, you have the Patriots that agree that qualified immunity is unconstitutional, unethical, and un-American, as well as some MAGA people. You have them saying that since Trump got arrested, now they want to defund the FBI,
yes,
government, so you can't have it both ways. But those are their words now. Defund the FBI.
So you got some special allies now.
We do, absolutely.
There we go. I like it. So is the Democratic Party then, if you're saying Republican Party is obviously against, is Democratic Party kind of neutral and saying nothing, or are they actively behind you, or some combination?
Well, I will say this. The Democrats did have a bill in the General Assembly in 2022, but the Republicans control the State House, and they control what bills move throughout the General Assembly. Well, it died. It never got a hearing. So therefore, the Democrats are like, what is it? Out of 99, there's like 32.
Yeah, they're pretty impotent in the state and the statewide in Ohio and the state General Assembly. The Republicans currently have a supermajority in the state House and the state Senate. They control every single executive office here in Ohio. That's governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, state treasurer, state auditor. Anything you can.
I know the feeling, except New York is Democrats, but exactly the same. I know the feeling. Yes, just reverse the color. That's my state. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. So Democrats have at least tried. I'll give them that. That's good. They've tried something. Yes. There we go. I like this. So that goes to my next question. You're using a ballot initiative to make this work. New York State, while it officially does have ballot initiatives officially, but it's only if the assembly allows us to have it and they write it and they do everything. That's how New York State works, which is not really a citizen ballot initiative. It's just, I would like to not be responsible for my vote, so I'm going to put it out to the people instead. That's kind of what New York State does. But you have an actual citizens ballot initiative. Your citizens can create a ballot initiative. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why did you? I guess that's why you chose it, because if you went the route of making a law, you'd never get it through. So you chose to go ballot initiative. Do you think it's going to work this time? Or no, tell me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay. We chose to do the ballot initiative because in 2020, after George Floyd's death, we had multiple bills in the General Assembly that were introduced by the Democrats. Multiple. We also had a meeting with the Senate presidents that were Republicans, and they told us that they were going to please pass something, whether it was mandatory training, racial bias training, mental health counseling, but nothing passed. Everything stalled. So we have exhausted all remedies in the state of Ohio. So we think it's going to pass because we've partnered with conservatives, Republicans, Democrats. This is a human issue. This isn't like a black or white Republican libertarian. I will say this. A libertarian was the first person, which was Justin Amash, right, that wrote the George Floyd Policing Act. And we worked closely with Spike Cohen, and we used to have a libertarian on our committee before he moved. So we're just not like Democrats or Republicans. We're just humans who want to see things done right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the funny thing people don't realize. A lot of people who are Democrats, Republicans always think ignore libertarians. And you shouldn't, because when it comes to single issue coalitions, we are like dogs with a bone. Like, we're going to stay on that thing. Like, we are going to stay on it. So you want to make sure when you got the right issue, pull libertarians in. We are happy to jump on board. We'll do single issue coalitions every day of the week. Absolutely 100%. I love that stuff. I'm glad libertarians are helping. I'm a big fan of Justin Amash. Love Spike Cohen. Glad they're helping out. That's amazing. So you feel like this is going to work as a ballot initiative. Your gut says it's going to work.
Yes. We're polling high. I can't see my readers.
Yes, we've one of our coalition partners, Campaign Zero, conducted polling back in 2022, early 2022, about how we feel as Ohioans about qualified immunity and the what should be done when an officer violates someone's rights. 53% of us in this poll said that there should be no qualified immunity, that it should be removed from police officers. And
so that does sound good.
Officers. That 71% of us in Ohio believe that when an officer violates someone's rights, the Department of Government should be held liable for those damages. 87% of us think that police should face consequences for violating a person's right while conducting police business. So this amendment that we're proposing, the Protecting Ohioans Constitutional Rights Amendment, is very much so in line with Ohio values, what we want here in Ohio. And it makes sense because it's an Ohio organization, very much so representative of a broad spectrum of Ohioans.
Absolutely. That makes sense. I have a super chat here. Roger Meadows says, thank you for the $5, Roger. Nina usually has a lot to say about progressive issues. Is she being vocal about this? Is she backing your efforts? Which Nina are we talking about? Do we know the Nina he's talking about?
Yeah, she's from Cleveland. She ran for state office, federal office last year. Nina I'm talking about. Nina Turner.
Nina Turner. Oh, of course. That's who he means. Okay, thank you, Roger. Yes, Nina Turner. Yes, she has been very vocal about these types of things. Is she behind you on this? Not behind you? Open, closed? What do you feel comfortable saying?
She hasn't reached out to us, and we haven't reached out to her either. So I couldn't say yes or no, but I'm sure she would support it. Yeah.
Maybe a phone call. Maybe Roger's right. Maybe a phone call. She's got doesn't she have she's got a big Twitter account? Does she have her own show now? She used to. I don't know if she still does, but she had a show.
I know she does have a big Twitter account. It's quite popular.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. So I don't know, maybe a little tweak here or there. I don't know. It might work. All I'm saying, I think Roger has a point there. But I guess the other piece I want to bring up here is, assuming that this works, what's next? What else are you doing? There are people here who love you and are saying, you do so many great things. So let's assume that this works. If it's 2024, right? This is for next year, correct?
Yes.
It works. You done? You going back to you gonna go hang out on the beach someplace? You gonna retire to Florida or what? What's gonna happen next?
Well, we would like to replace qualified immunity with professional mandatory insurance. We feel that law enforcement officers should. So we're talking to some, representatives now that also agree to replace it with, mandatory professional insurance.
I got it. I like the idea. I talk about all the time, the idea of liability. Doctors have it. Lawyers have it. I'm a consultant. I have it, right? I have professional, it's called E&O insurance, errors and omissions, right? I have errors and omissions insurance as a consultant. If I make some kind of mistake, screw something up, I have insurance because I get sued, right? So I think people need to have that. I agree. Professionals have insurance. It makes complete and total sense. I get it completely. That's great. So I guess the next piece is the group, as you're moving forward, you're going to be able to have a bunch of, I guess, coalition partners, if that makes any sense, right? I'm sure you're going to have a bunch of people who say, oh my God, you've had success. You've had this, you've had that. Here's the hardest part. When are you going to sell out?
Never.
I'm just teasing. I'm totally teasing you, right? But you get popular, all of a sudden now somebody wants to write you a big check. You're like, oh, I didn't tell you I now work for, I don't know, I work for the NRA now or something, right? All of a sudden you just get a big check. And yeah, I'm teasing you, obviously. I'm doing a comment if I could. Christopher says, it's extremely difficult to win a civil or criminal case against the government itself. That in itself can cause issues. So I guess the other piece I would think is happening, what Chris is saying, is even if we end qualified immunity tomorrow, there are still going to be people who are going to be afraid to sue, lawyers who think they won't be able to win. So I feel like that's my guess is, and I don't know, I don't have data, this is my guess, I think Chris was thinking this too, that's probably why there hasn't been a massive rash of lawsuits, right? Because people start just going to randomly sue cops. I think most people in America, most people don't dislike cops. I mean, obviously some people do, but I think if you polled Americans in general, most Americans don't hate cops. They don't want to punish cops. I don't think so. Am I right on this?
Oh yeah, especially here in Ohio. We're very much so. We back the law enforcement here, and it's not so much. This isn't, an anti-police, anti-cop, anti-law enforcement amendment. It is just pro-accountability. That's all we're asking for.
Got it. So let me ask you, I've interviewed police officers before, and I assumed that certain takes were true, but they weren't always true. For example, I always assumed that cops did not like cameras. Like they were like, cameras are bad, blah, blah, blah. But what I found out is many cops are actually happy to have cameras. They're like, great, because they said, and I recently had a guy who told me this, he's like, sometimes the civilians are horrible jerks. So now they get to see what I go through, right? So they're like, good, put the camera on. I always keep my camera on because there's people who are jerks. I got to deal with jerks coming at me, and now people see it. So there are cops that are actually for cameras. Are there cops that are okay with qualified immunity, or are most of them against it? Do you know? And I'm sure if the unions are mad and they can't tell you openly, but do you know if cops are universally against this, half and half, a little bit? Do you know?
Yeah, there are several organizations that work with, the national campaign that were former cops, and they are working to end it along with Ben and Jerry. So yes, and even in 2021, we had a former, she's now a commander that was working with us closely here in Columbus in qualified immunity. So yes.
So there are some police officers who are on board with this.
Yes.
Wow, that's great. That surprises me, but I'm happy. That's good. I wasn't sure if that was true or not. I would assume they would feel like they're being attacked. That would be my assumption. So I'm glad someone like, you know what? It's okay. I like that. Nate goes on to ask, excellent question about unions, Larry Sharp. Public sector unions should be abolished because their employer is literally forced to employ them. There's no balance of power. Well, I got to tell you, I had an idea about this. It's a little bit off topic, but Nate brought it up, so I'll bring it up to you guys. And the idea is, I'm not against public sector unions. I'm against the way they are now, which is they are not negotiating, and this is to Nate's point, with their bosses. They're negotiating with the governor or with the mayor, and it's not his money. All public sector union deals should be done through referendum. This way they're talking to the actual people, and the people are agreeing or not disagreeing, or whatever the case may be, not agreeing with whatever, or you're negotiating with the people instead of negotiating who are paying these taxes, who are supplying the money. And if you do it that way, now unions can no longer or won't have any need to buy politicians anymore, right? Because the politician doesn't have any power. So instead, the unions would take their money, instead of buying the governor or buying the mayor or buying someone, they have to have a public sector, basically advertising campaign to get the people to agree that, hey, this is the right thing. This is what matters. We're your union. We work for you. You have to give us these things so we can do your job. That seems like a more of a balance of power in my eyes without having to destroy the union. But it stops unions from buying politicians. It makes them, petition the people who are paying their salaries. I don't know. Maybe that's your next thing. I've given you your third thing to do.
No, that's certainly an interesting perspective. I haven't thought about it in that way.
There we go. So there's your third thing. So this, then insurance, and then you call me up and we'll do this one. I'll keep you busy for the next 5 years. All good. I got you covered. No worries whatsoever. All good. So yes, Roger is another one. He says, thank you again for the $5. He says, never wait for politicians to do what you can do yourself. In New York State was a CBI state. If New York State was a CBI state, 4 amendments, I'd never, ever try to get politicians to do what we can do yourself. State 4 amendments. Oh, okay. He means Citizens Ballot Initiative State 4 amendments. Yes. Okay. That's what he's saying. I'm a big fan, to be forward. Most people don't know that most states don't have citizens ballot initiatives, right? It's not in every state. It is in California, because they do like 25 every year. So there's a lot in California, but other states don't have it. And I think Roger's right. And I think it's a way of getting around things. For example, if you look in New York State, New Yorkers actually want school choice, but the politicians don't. You go to someplace like Kansas, right? They do not want bans on abortions, but the leadership does. So if you have citizen initiative, the citizens can override a heavily blue or heavily red state to have the more moderate views that the actual people actually want. And I think that's something that I love. And I think you're actually doing that in Ohio. You're actually doing exactly that. You're actually coming up with the moderate view that most Ohioans want. They want this thing. We have politicians don't, and they have no incentive to not do it. So I think it's great. That's awesome. I love it. So let me ask you, before we wrap this up, is there anything else you're doing that you'd want to chat about or you'd want us to know about?
Well, that takes all our time with the ballot initiative. So yeah. That's
not a simple thing. You got to work for that now.
Collecting signatures, going to different counties, educating the public about, QI and what can be done, how to get involved,
So hold on. I want to, now that you brought that up, let me hold you for a couple more minutes if I could. Do you have a couple more minutes? Do you have a couple seconds?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
No. Yes, great. So let me go to one. Getting signatures. How does that work when it comes to ballot initiatives? What do you have to do? Do they give you a specific time limit, a certain amount, certain of a person? How does that work?
So what we have to do here in Ohio is process starting out. First, you draft your proposed amendments. Then you collect 1,000 signatures, valid signatures, and then you submit them to the Attorney General. He then chooses to certify or reject the language of the summary of the amendment, and his statutory duty is to determine whether that summary of the amendment is a fair and truthful representation of the amendment itself. Once you get Attorney General certification, then you have to go on to collect signatures equal to 10% of the number of votes cast in the latest gubernatorial election, which for us will have to get about 420,000 valid signatures, which with a typical validity rate of about 50% here in Ohio, we'll need to get 850,000 signatures minimum. And we need to collect those by the first week of July and submit them to the Secretary of State to get it on the November 2024 ballot. Once those signatures are validated or once they're submitted to the Secretary of State, then it is all hands on deck to convince the voters here in Ohio that this is a good idea. This will promote a better government than what we have now, and there will be more accountability. And it's more so just getting that word out there, past the noise of a Senate election in 2024, a presidential election in 2024, all the congressional elections in 2024, all the statewide elections in 2024. It's there'll be a lot of noise to push past, but with our coalition partners and with the tenacity we have and with all our
Okay, so hold on one second. So we're talking 800,000 signatures. Can you start now, or like they give you a window? How does that work?
It is. There is no time window. I know.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
New York has pretty restrictive time windows on signature collection. I remember watching your latest run for governor, and
yes,
you guys have what? You have to collect signatures in the coldest months of the year.
6 weeks during a time when there's still snowstorms in New York State. That is correct. Yes, 6 weeks. That's all you get. Yes, that is correct. It is insane. But yes, so wow. So do you feel comfortable telling me what your progress is right now on 800,000?
We are currently in the stage of collecting the 1,000 signatures and submitting those to Attorney General Dave Yost. We have submitted 3 iterations of the amendment and summary language to the Attorney General. He has rejected each and every one. This latest rejection was very shaky. We have drafted new language, and we'll be collecting signatures throughout September to submit by the end of September. So by the first week of October, we should get that Attorney General certification. Then we'll have from the first week of October to the first week of July of 2024 to collect those 850,000 signatures.
Wow. That's like 100,000 signatures a month.
Yes, yes. And it's not going to be just us working on this. Every single one of our coalition partners who we work on this, we have partnered with You Are the Power, Campaign to End Qualified Immunity, Campaign Zero.
You're gonna need 3,000 signatures a day for 8 months straight.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay, if you do this, that's amazing. Yes, I will not bother you. I'll leave you alone until afterwards. It's fine. Yes, I'll totally leave you alone. And then once you get it, you're right. Now you got to convince people that it's the right thing.
Yes.
So now you got to start the campaign to get people to go, okay, now we did it. Now, hey, by the way, November, with everything else going on, don't forget to vote for this. That is going to be challenging. Wow. Okay, great. Okay, you've actually made me feel better about my campaign run. I actually feel better. Yeah, I actually feel better. Okay, I only had to get 2,000 a day for 6 weeks straight. So I guess it's not as bad. So there we go. But still insanely hard. I appreciate it. Wow. Well, guys, if you're watching this, we talk to my audience real fast, and you like it, do me a favor, click the like button. I know I asked you before, but I'm going to keep asking you because it does matter. You can do it. It does matter. Every single like counts. If you want to share this in the Facebook groups, please do so. If you can share it anyway, please do so. And do me one more favor. Follow these lovely people who have given us so much time and who are busting their rump to do this. Follow them on Twitter at the OCEQI on Twitter, or head over to the show notes. You can check out what they're doing there. Follow them, support them to the best of your ability. If you want to jump on board, you all know Spike, he's on board. So jump on You Are the Power, help him there, whatever. Help out to the best of your ability to make this work. It will be great. I want to say thank you to everybody who was watching. Thank you guys for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
we appreciate
thank you very much.
Yes, everybody who was watching, I appreciate it. I will see you all